Welcome to the EchoCast, episode 136, Beep Boop Mother Trucka. This is a podcast about The Division, its community, news, speculation, and updates about the future of the game. I am Bon Diesel. I do Division stuff, such as this podcast, Twitch streams, YouTube videos, and so on and so forth. Please take a moment to subscribe to and rate this podcast. Drop a review on whatever platform you are listening to it on. If you are on YouTube, please leave some type of comment down below. The engagement helps me get out there, helps the algorithm. This week, we will talk about state of the game being over, first impressions of some new games and old games, Anthem being canceled, fake Division 2 leaks, a new Division movie director, and more. First, I want to thank our Patreon supporters for this month, Hassan, Christian, Darren, Tim, PK, Ron, and Man-Made Golf. There are no more ads on this podcast, so if you would like to support via Patreon, I would very much appreciate it. It does help me invest in equipment. Right now, we're looking for a new video card so I can stream at a bit higher quality and use that as an excuse to stream more. So feel free to check me out on patreon.com/bondiesel. So once again, in the state of the game recap section of the podcast that we always start off with, if you follow things closely, you'll know there hasn't been a state of the game. And honestly, I may have to remove this section because it seems state of the game as we know it or knew it might be over. This is for various reasons. The main one being that we haven't had one in 2-3 months now. If you've been around the community for a while, you would know that around the December January, they do slow down. They always have. We typically don't get much news until a late January, February, even March. And this is kind of unprecedented, though. We've gotten the announcement of new projects that Massive is working on. We've gotten some assurance that Division 2 is still a priority, but it seems that from some tweets and stuff, it seems like Hamish has suggested that he may not be on Division anymore, or he may have straight up just said it. I remember seeing a tweet. I can't remember the exact wording of it. And it seems that other people aren't really commenting on or sharing anything about the game like Yannick. We've been getting basically the few tidbits we've gotten from Johan. And I think we should kind of expect that moving forward. As far as I know, the people who are currently on the game are Johan and Karina. Even though even Karina doesn't really post much directly, but seems to still be on the team in some capacity. Shauna, if you've seen her on Twitter, she was on Phoenix Rising, but appears basically replied directly to me saying that she is coming back to Division 2, whatever that means. I will say I've noticed that she tends to only be on games around or when they have new content or are releasing. So then bringing her back does suggest that whatever they're doing must be at least planned to be somewhat significant. I understand that obviously with Avatar and Star Wars coming, they're going to need to move their comm devs to those projects. The fact that we've had like the core of like Hamish and Yannick on Division for so long, and before that Petter as well, is honestly kind of surprising. If you pay attention to gaming, the game space, and how these comm devs tend to work, they tend to be really short term, and they kind of bounce around to different projects and even different companies, really. So the fact that we've had Hamish and Yannick, and we had some other people for like multiple years, and we had Hamish basically all of Division 1 and the first 2 years of Division 2. Same with Yannick. We had Petter for all of Division 1 and a good chunk of 2, or at least some of 2. It's been a blessing, right? They're good people, no matter your feelings on the game and things like that. I'm a little biased. I've gotten to meet all of them. I've met some of them a couple of times. Hamish I met at E3 in 2018. Yannick I met at E3 and at the pre-release event I went to in San Francisco, where I got to see Black Tusk revealed, and got to play the game, a pretty good chunk of it. I'm trying to think who else was there. I've just, I've gotten to meet these guys. They're good people. It's been fun to watch them grow and change as comm devs and what they do. They all have titles that are more prolific than comm dev. I just kind of generally name them that. So when it comes to state of the game, I think it's over, at least until there's a Division 3. That's a bummer, because even between Division 1 and 2, state of the games never completely went away. They did take breaks and have fairly large windows between the big announcements and so on and so forth. But it never really died, and we never really lost the core of the team, and it seems like that's probably what's happening. It only makes sense for them to send Hamish and Yannick and these guys to Star Wars, to Avatar. I mean, you have to think Avatar is coming out next year, which means in all likelihood this summer they're going to start pushing it and start showing things, and they have to have a comm dev team for that. So it's almost certain that Hamish or someone will be on that. And if they're not on that, they're almost certainly going to be on, the Star Wars project, which my guess is still that's probably coming 2023 at the earliest. So, and if those things are all true, I think there will be a Division 3. I do really believe it. I don't think there will be a Division 3 until 2024, maybe even 5. If it happens at all. I'm confident, but we'll have to see. That said, when it comes to state of the game, it shouldn't just go away. At least at one point, there were plans, or we were told, that there was going to be a state of the game at the end of January. Now, that coincided with the news of the Star Wars project and things like that. And so I assume that put them in between a rock and a hard place, right? Where they were kind of damned if they do or damned if they didn't. If they came out and did a state of the game and didn't have a very clear and significant statement of, this is how that affects this game, and here's our plans for Division 2, then a state of the game would not have been good at that time if it wasn't extremely clear. And here's what you guys need to realize. This is both me speculating and having some conversations that are notable that I'm obviously not going to talk about. I'm not going to reveal my sources. If you don't believe me, that's fine. I don't care at this point. If you're still listening to this podcast, I assume I have some credibility to you. So take that for what it is. My assumption is that when they made that Star Wars announcement, there may not have actually been a guarantee they were going to do year 3 and 4 content for Division 2 or year 3. Year 4 isn't necessarily guaranteed. They did say 2021 and 2 content. That could just be like content from the end of 21 to 22. We'll see. 21 and 22 makes year 3 and 4 actually makes sense to me, though, because then at the end of that is when they could announce a Division 3, and then within 18 to 24 months of that is when Division 3 would come. But we'll get into that another time. But with State of the Game, it really is an institution. It's a unique thing in the gaming space, especially big AAA development. And with all that time that Hamish and Yannick and the rest of the team have spent on State of the Game they had a set. They had an expectation. There was a culture around it. That culture for me involved turning off chat and never listening or reading it. But it deserves more than to just disappear. And this has been like kind of a weird theme with this game of like, one day Thailander was just gone, and then another day Julian is just gone, and now State of the Game is just gone. And what I think for what it means for information sharing and so on and so forth moving forward, my guess is that people shouldn't expect State of the Game to return, at least not until Division 3. I think people need to assume or expect that updates now are going to come on Twitter, on Reddit, probably recorded YouTube videos from the comm devs, and trailers. I would not expect this weekly or bi-weekly or even monthly show to return. I just can't imagine it's in the budget. I can't imagine it's in the cards for them to do that. Could there be a thing where maybe like Karina and Johan do like a stream where their faces are on the screen and, you know, they tell us about what's going on here and there? Maybe that'd be cool. That'd be great. But even when COVID calms down and they all are back in the office and stuff, I unfortunately don't expect to see State of the Game return, which is a huge bummer, but it's also kind of understandable. My last bit on this is to say that if it is over, which I think it is, if they have moved on and moved people to new projects and so on and so forth, that's fine. Not only do I understand it, I am cool with it, but they really need to sign them off. I would really like, and this is up to them, if they even want to do this. I could totally understand if they just want to move on. But it would be cool to have like one more show where they say, hey, you know, we don't have any news, straight up. But we did want to come on one more time and say, hey, thank you. Maybe talk about some of their memories, some of their favorite moments over the years of doing stuff like E3s or, you know, the ETFs they did and things like that. That it would just be cool. It'd be nice to have like a little bit of a sign off of some type. And then at the end, maybe they could say, and maybe one day we'll be back or something. I don't know. That's just hopeful. But I just think that it would just really suck if the way that it's currently ending is just the way it goes. Now, honestly, in a few months, I won't even be thinking about it more than likely, and I'll have moved on and be doing whatever I'm doing at the time. But I just think in the moment, right now, it'd be kind of cool to see a proper send-off. So that's my request. Moving on to gaming news. Some first impressions. So I've started a new thing with my streaming where I just don't really feel like streaming Division 2 at the moment because I just am not really motivated to do anything on there because there's not much for me to do that I'm interested in. So with streaming, what I've decided to do instead is to start grabbing games off of Game Pass, to start grabbing games. I'll even look at Steam and stuff like that as I run out of options to just grab games like, hey, I've heard of that and I never played it, or, oh, this game just came out, I'm going to check this out. So I've been doing these like 1 to 2 hour streams where I just grab a game, I play it. In one example, I'll talk about it, I actually recorded another hour or so of gameplay later and posted it as a separate video. But I'm doing these first impression streams where I jump on, I play a game I haven't played before, I talk about it in the moment, and then at the end I kind of summarize what I thought and whether I would recommend it to other people and whether or not I plan to continue playing or not. So the first one I did was Falconer. This was a release game for Xbox Series X. It's gained critical acclaim. It's kind of this Panzer Dragoon RPG open world kind of game. So I didn't really like it, and I didn't feel like it educated me very well when I started playing it. I feel like I didn't understand it. Once I did kind of start to get a hold of the controls or understand them, I still felt like the controls didn't feel very good. It just felt just not very tight, if that is a way to describe controls. That said, after I posted my first impression of it to YouTube, I received a very long message on my YouTube video. You can go read it. I left it up. I'm not going to delete it. It was actually from the creator of the game. So I came to find that this game was made by a 2-person development team. And long story short, he made a bunch of points about, why things are the way they are. I assume it seemed like he watched most of the playthrough, if not all of it, and kind of described maybe, why he thought maybe I had some issues with the game and so on and so forth. He also kind of gave some kind of weak excuses, if I have to be totally honest about stuff, kind of saying that some things are left up to the imagination and stuff, but we'll get past that. Overall, I appreciate the engagement with someone. I probably was a little too hard on the game when I was talking about it. I did leave the video up because it's how I feel about it. But I did maybe adjust my attitude a bit. It was kind of cool interacting with a dev like that, and to get a little bit of humble pie when it came to it. Still, after all of that, I still don't recommend the game. I don't think it was very good. It wasn't my thing. That said, it got really good reviews. I want to say it was like 7 and 8s from all the big publications. So it seems like the type of game, if I spent 4 or 5 more hours playing it and really got into the mechanics of it and the RPG side of it, maybe I would appreciate it more. But if a game doesn't grab me fairly quickly, I just have other stuff to play. So I moved on, and that's okay. The second game I did was Outriders. So the demo for Outriders came out. This is a game that's kind of I would call it like a Gears of War, Anthem, Destiny mashup. A lot of Division players are jumping on. I wouldn't compare it to Division basically at all. It shares essentially no significant mechanics or anything that I know or feel that I noticed. Obviously, everyone can have their own point. Outriders is a weird game. To me, the impression I got of it is that it's kind of like, it's like good or decent at everything a looter shooter can be good at. But it's not like amazing at anything. And it's really clunky in some areas. The story is like super generic and kind of lame. It's got some weird like gameplay choices. The graphics are like okay. I wouldn't say they're amazing. The controls are fine. The cover system kind of sucks, to me at least. The gunplay is okay, is pretty good. It's very Gears of War ish. The studio that made the game did a Gears of War game, so it makes sense. That would be, I think it was Judgment. It's just fine. It's the way I described it is it's aggressively okay. There's a lot of people really jumping onto it. I've kind of seen this happen a lot, especially in the Division community. Everyone, especially the streamers and creators, are kind of looking for that next hot thing. So they're all, every time something's possible, they got their little partnerships with the game devs and they get those little things, and that's all great, good for them. But they kind of, I think people are always really hoping to the point of maybe kind of being a little too invested. That this is the next one. It happened with Anthem. It happened now with Outriders. I've seen it happen with a few games, of people being like, oh, this is gonna be my big break. This is gonna be my game, and it's just not. I'm not gonna buy Outriders. There's not a chance I'm gonna buy it. I finished I finished the demo for one of the archetypes, and it's fine. I don't ever need to play it again though. There's a slight chance if it's ever on discount and I can carry over that first playthrough of the demo, I may buy it for like $20 and finish the story out just to see what happens. But Outriders is going to be I'm kind of curious to what happened, watch a YouTube video, okay, and then move on type of game, I think. So the next first impressions I did was with Monster Hunter World. So the caveat here is that when I started it, the very first mission, I missed a direction and spent about a half hour not doing anything. So I restarted the mission and it worked out really quickly and I figured it out. Monster Hunter World is a game that I 100% understand the hype and the love and the passion for it. It's a type of game that if I had nothing else in the world to play and wanted to invest 500 hours into a game, I can see that Monster Hunter World would be amazing. Even in the couple hours I spent with it, playing it, I got a lot better at it pretty quickly, and like I get it. Like it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, okay, this game is dope. That said, I'm probably not going to go back to it, at least not anytime soon. aesthetically not really my style. Story wise is basically devoid of a story or anything interesting. um yeah, I'm good. It's one of those things that I may touch base on it if I find myself completely burned out on everything else there is to play. um but I highly suggest it, especially if you are looking for something to sink your teeth like all the way into. It's a great game, very cool. I really really liked it. I just don't know if it's a thing I'm going to really sink my teeth into. And then the final one I have here is Nier Automata. Never actually played this, even though it came out like 4 years ago now. I really like this game. The opening mission is bizarre and awesome. The way it transitions between like 5 different types of games, whether it's like the old school, like was Star Destroyer or whatever type of game. It just literally in the first 20 minutes or 30 minutes you play the game, you play like 5 or 6 different genres of games in this. And then the story starts to happen, and the characters just look cool, and the world looks cool, and the graphics are definitely dated. It doesn't look like it got like a 1X PS4 Pro upgrade. It definitely hasn't gotten a PS5 Series X upgrade. It looks a little rough. It does run at 60 FPS, or at least it seemed like it did. It was extremely smooth on the Series X. It's just a cool freaking game. And since I started playing it, I played it on stream. It's super weird though, so just be ready for that. um I played it, and it's a game I want to finish at some point, because I watched a bunch of reviews about this. If you follow Skill Up still, his review he did for Nier Automata was his big first step away from Division, pretty much his like cut off from Division. And it's this really big prolific interview or a review of the game that is really great. Completely spoils everything though, so just be ready for that. um it's just a cool game. You need to go play Nier Automata. You at least need to play some of it and then watch one of the mini videos about the lore of it that really digs into it, because the way that the game kind of plays out is you replay it multiple times to actually finish it. I don't think it's a super long game, but every time you replay it, it changes significantly, and that's all I'll say. Nier Automata, super dope. I would love to finish it at some point. I'm probably not gonna do it right now. Absolutely must play. And it really, whether or not it's your style of game or not, I think it's I would say it's like one of the masterpieces of the last generation. And every single person should at least try it. So upcoming first impressions are going to be Call of the Sea, uh, Untangled 2, something like that. There's a few games I'm throwing on there. Yeah, so I'm excited for that. We're gonna keep doing that. I may throw in Tarkov and stuff here and there, but it seems like these are a lot more popular than me playing Tarkov, and I just can't get myself to do Division at this point. The second big, just kind of general gaming topic is Anthem being canceled. So it's not really surprising. This news is obviously a little bit old. It's a bummer, I personally, so I played a closed alpha or something, or closed beta for Anthem, and it was rough. It was not in good shape. And I'm saying like for a closed beta, like I know what to expect. I've played at this point a bunch of games in early development, so I kind of know, like, textures are gonna be missing, there's voice lines are gonna be missing, it's gonna be a little glitchy, like those things are all like, I expect that. And I still remember those early builds of Anthem being rough, being bad, not even rough, just bad. And then I remember playing more, the open beta, and I feel like I played like 3 versions of the game at some point, and it was all, and even the final beta being like, ugh, like they definitely fixed a bunch of stuff, but this game just still feels like it's just lacking soul. And that's kind of what it seems like happened with that game. There's been the stories by Jason Schreier and other people about, how it's just the direction of this game just seems like it was just completely busted. They were removing big giant things like flying and putting it back in and going back and forth on that. That the demo they showed at that E3 was, it's not unusual for a demo or something to be shown at like a big conference that is like specially made just for that, you know, a la 2013 Division trailer. But that's a lesson that they should have learned a long time ago, to not literally make like a completely separate thing from what's actually being made. I understand you gotta spruce it up a little bit, make it look a little more interesting, but you know, you can't basically cut a majority of what you show, or just never actually intend to make a bunch of that even into the game. So yeah, it's a bummer. Now I will say there is a tiny spiteful petty side of me that I remember when Anthem was coming out, there was a handful of people who I reluctantly interacted with, who were like, "Oh, Anthem's going to be the shit. It's going to kill Division 2." And while, you know, Division 2, which we'll talk about, hasn't been the most glorious success in the world, or maybe hasn't met expectations entirely, I would say the long take on that is that Division 2 was very much more a complete experience and game than, unfortunately, Anthem ever ended up being. But I do feel bad. You know, I know multiple people who were really excited for Anthem, and Anthem Next and Anthem 2.0, whatever it was going to be. What's also a bummer is that people should realize that this probably means that there will never be like an Anthem sequel or something. It's this experience probably killed that IP. And I feel bad for the devs. I mean, the devs, the individuals, you know, the people not at the top, you know, all they did is they were assigned things to do and they did them. And they did a bunch of things really well. It was a beautiful game. The mech suits were cool, and there's a lot of cool animations and enemies and stuff like that. And it just all kind of got wasted, unfortunately. So there's an article that came out today or yesterday that said, you know, Anthem being canceled should remind people of why a game like Division 2 specifically, is so good. And what I've seen some reaction to that article, people being like, "Oh, Division 2 is not really that good." And I think what people need to realize is that someone who has played Division 2 for 500, 1,000 plus hours, is really pushing Division 2 to its limits. I mean, there's people I've seen say that they've played it for 2, 3, 4,000 hours, which is honestly bonkers to me, because I don't know what you would do for that much time. I know in Division 1, I spent a lot of time doing screenshots and stuff, so I'm sure that's a part of it. But Division 2 isn't meant to be a 24/7 game for anyone. I would argue at this point that Division 2 is a good 2, 3 to 500 hour game for most people, or even maybe 100-hour game for a lot of people. And those people will leave if they stop playing at that point, and will, I think, look back at their experience glowingly. It's a great game for that amount of time, right? And it just, you know, I really hope with the way that this Anthem thing went, people who are maybe, you know, super critical of Division and stuff can at least appreciate that it's not Anthem. So rip Anthem. Moving on to Division 2 topics. So the main one, I know I'm late to the party here. I didn't get the clicks or the Reddit leaks. So I read them. I remember, and it was, what was so funny is it always cracks me up. These posts come up here and there, and it was, "I have a friend at Massive, and here's what he told me." So I actually have friends at Massive, and they definitely don't ever tell me anything, I promise. But I hear things in the grapevine. So here's the thing that I think people need to realize. One, I don't think that year 3 content is even far enough along to leak anything like that. I'm under the impression that there's not a chance things are far enough along that anyone who is in the know could even say those things. That's the impression I'm under. What I think people need to realize is that people who actually get like hints and tidbits, other than like Jason Schreier and stuff, like those people who like have these big, you know, connections and all that, the day-to-day guy or gal who might have some friends who know some things, very rarely are you ever going to have a dev or someone who's like game adjacent just come to you and be like, "Okay, bro, here's a point by point list of everything we're doing. it's almost always going to be something more along the lines of like kind of vague references, kind of wink wink hint hints, kind of educated speculation, things like that. So what I'll say is that when I read that entire list of things, some of the stuff I think would just be assumed that was on there, that anyone could just be like, oh, I bet they're going to do this. And it may happen. Absolutely. But then there was a lot of stuff on there that just isn't going to happen. And I'm not going to say or specify what, or why I think that or no. But just, it was just bullshit. I mean, I'm glad that this time it was a Reddit post instead of a video where someone, does the, my dad works for Nintendo thing, I don't know. And what was really fun about it is that at one point when I was, kind of interacting with people about this, and being like, hey, like, I just have good reason to believe that most of this isn't true. People being like, well, how do you know? And it's like, I understand I'm a very small creator in general, even within the Division community. I'm not that prolific. But like, I've been to E3 for Division. I've been to early, access journalist creator events. I know some people, I've met some people, wink, wink. I'm never just going to leak anything because I don't, I've made friends, like this is a hobby for me. This isn't like my job. So, I'm not going to throw people under the bus to make a quick buck or to get some clicks. And I think you'll find that most people who do actually know something don't say anything, or they just heavily speculate. And you may find that later on their speculation was oddly accurate. But that's what I'll say about that. So those leaks, they were bullshit. I wouldn't take much or anything from them. And that's what that was. I'm glad all the YouTubers got their videos out over it though. We did get news for Division about the Division movie, the Netflix movie, and it has a new director. So Rawson Thurber, which I believe I'm saying correctly, has been announced as a new director for the movie adaptation of The Division on Netflix, starring Jessica Chastain and Jake Gyllenhaal. He has done movies such as Red Notice, which is coming out soon for Netflix, that has The Rock, Gal Gadot, and Ryan Reynolds in it. But he also did We're the Millers, which I would say is, in my opinion, his most known movie, which is awesome. He also did Skyscraper with The Rock. So I never saw that. I'm sure it was one of The Rock's action movies. I remember hearing it was entertaining. So we're not, dealing with a George Lucas here necessarily, but that's fine because almost no one is that. What's most exciting is that he's a very self-proclaimed Division fan. When he announced it, he talked about how every Tuesday he gets a group of friends together that still play the game. So he talked about playing Division 1 on launch day and stuff like that. So, hey, at the very least, this guy knows the game. He's heard of it before. I have a feeling the last director, I think it was David Licht or whatever his name was, in interviews about the movie and the game, seemed like he'd just been kind of handed a piece of paper and knew that. So Rawson, being a part of this, it seems like we have a real Division fan in the director's chair, and I'm really excited for that. That should be really, really cool. What's also really, really cool is I threw out the idea of him coming on this very podcast, and he sent me his guy's email, and I'm currently corresponding with them to get him on the show. So at some point in the future, I do plan on basically dedicating an entire episode to an interview and a talk with Rawson Thurber. I can't guarantee it's going to happen. These things, I actually was in contact with the last director's agent as well to try to set something up. Obviously, that it's like 2 years ago, back when it was announced or more. So hopefully we can get Rawson on the show and we can chat Division, we can chat movies, we can chat his career, kind of his ideas. I'm assuming he won't be able to really talk much directly about the movie because I don't even know when it's supposed to start shooting or anything. But I at least would like to dig into kind of his thoughts on like game movies and how they can be better, and just to kind of poke that topic a bit. And then finally, for some Division 2 Year 3 speculation, I'm seeing a lot of people speculate a lot of things. My main speculation is that I'm expecting something that's more significant than just seasons or manhunts. I'm not expecting a Warlords of New York style, like, big thing. I'm under the impression that there's going to be a small number of massive devs, a small team that is going to be on this, and that they're going to get support from some outside studios. I don't know numbers. I don't know studio names. I don't know anything significantly. From just the communication that's happened, it seems like Trick is involved. If you don't know who she is, she's been on State of the Game multiple times. Trick is the person who I'm under the impression basically came in and took the global events and kind of revamped them. I think she's been in charge of a lot of the seasonal stuff. And in my opinion, she really took the global events from being things that honestly just weren't fun and I never turned them on to revamping them and making them great. So hopefully Trick is very much involved. If there are multiple studios helping and, kind of a base little massive team that they're creating to do it, it could be more substantial content than people think. If you were just going to do more seasons and stuff like that, they wouldn't bring in other studios, I don't think. You would just maybe have a little core team of 10 or 15 people that would just do those things and make the new assets and things like that. I don't think you would bring in other studios if you were just going to do super duper basic stuff. Warlords of New York was a huge project, and I really don't know if they're going to have that kind of manpower and woman power. But we'll have to wait and see. But we'll see. I've seen a lot of speculation about things like a New York City DZ and other PvP stuff. I know I dog on PvP a lot in the Division. I just don't think it's a priority, and I just don't think. I think you really need to look at the way that PvP's been treated, especially in Division 2, and just accept at some point that it's just not a priority for the game or for Massive. If they do some PvP stuff and make it super dope, that's great. That's more stuff for me to play. I think that people need to stop assuming there's going to be some top secret drop where they're all of a sudden be like, we were just kidding about how we've treated PvP for the last 5 years. Now we're going to make it good, especially in a genre where it just isn't good. The best PvP in the genre is Destiny, and I'm hard pressed to find anyone who truly thinks Destiny's PvP is like really good compared to other competitors. So there's that. PvE wise, there's kind of like, some pie in the sky hopes that there may be some type of like underground or survival type thing coming. Survival, who knows? They've showed an affinity for it, but not actually done anything with it. The underground is a thing that I really think I've kind of gotten tidbits over the years of that. Underground wasn't just something they did in a few months. I'm under the impression Underground was in development for years, and that it was a huge project, and that people don't realize that it was like a really big project. It wasn't just as simple as them just making some levels and randomizing it. It was a big deal. So I just don't think we're going to get that kind of an investment, but I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't think that we're getting more raids. Annecy was the studio who did that, and from all accounts and from what I've heard, they are on Star Wars and have been for a while. So I don't think there's going to be more raids. I could see new missions and stuff. I just don't know where they're at with like being able to do like voiceover, and doing things like animation, like the suits and doing, like the acting and things like that. I mean, that's all huge development stuff that I can't imagine they're going to give them those resources, but I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong is where I'm kind of getting at it. So, I don't really have anything specifically to like speculate, because I'm kind of in a thing where I just kind of want to wait and see. I don't want to speculate too much. I want to assume the worst and then be surprised in a happy way. And I think everyone else should maybe take that angle as well. So moving on to the listener questions. We have MAD8 on Twitter said, with the PS5 and Series X, do you think we'll ever get to play a Division game like the one in the E3 2013 demo? So one of the things that kind of excites me about a Division 3 possibly not coming for like 3 or 4 years is that, well, it's a few things. One, it means that they would almost certainly make it next gen only, which they need to for the Snowdrops case. I'm basically under the impression that Division 1 and 2, but even 1 was really, really held back by the Xbox One and PS4 hardware wise, that they weren't able to do the things they wanted, a la the 2013 trailer. I like that means that they'll be able to have a higher bottom tier. I like that a bunch of the devs that would in theory work on a Division 3 are getting to work on a different franchise for at least a few years to kind of shake themselves off, you know. I think that I think there's a really good chance that a Division 3 could continue on the story wherever it's at the time. But I may catch some shit for this, but would be completely fine if they kind of rebooted the game in a way, at least from like a gameplay point of view. I think it always needs to be some type of a looter game. But I really think they could pivot it to a more realistic, much more 2013 trailer feel of a game where, Division 2 became, and even Division 1 became very like gamified and very like flashy and bright colors and very kind of Fortnite-y in a way, and lost some of its edge and some of its like grit. And I could definitely see them take a Division 3 and maybe go a different route. If Star Wars is this super narrative experience like I'm expecting, I wouldn't personally hate for them to take a very narrative focused turn with a Division 3. Very much like what that trailer back in the day kind of felt like. Something much more personal. So I hope so, MAD8. I think so, but we'll have to wait and see. As for other content updates, I am doing an Extra Life campaign all of 2021. We're now, as of recording, up to $215. My first goal is at $250, where I'll do a merch stream. We'll give away some coffee mugs, some t-shirts. We'll have a good old time. I have a bunch of goals after that. There's things like doing big giveaways, doing a 12-hour stream. There's a bunch of stuff that we can do. So, check it out. That money doesn't go to me. It goes straight to Extra Life. Specifically, it's going to the Children's Hospital in my area. I do work with people with intellectual disabilities, and this Children's Hospital in particular helps all of my clients a lot. And if Baby Diesel ever had any major health issues, this would be the hospital she would go to for specialist care. So it does mean a lot to me, and it is personal. So if you can't sub the channel, if you can't join Patreon, if you can't do any of those things, it's fine. I get it. But if you can spare $5, $10, $15 to Extra Life, I would really appreciate it. That'd be really, really cool. If you happen to be a fan of Kinda Funny, the gaming channel and the lifestyle channel, I am on their team. So that money is also kind of part of their big thing they do every year. Streaming wise, I talked about it before. I'm probably not going to do Division 2 until there's new stuff. Tarkov, I'm enjoying. I'm playing quite a bit of, but it doesn't seem like it's the most popular thing on earth when it comes to the streaming thing. The first impressions thing has done really well. It's been as good a viewership as I've gotten recently. So that's the thing I want to keep doing, even though that well will eventually kind of dry up. So yeah, I may kind of pull back on streams a little bit, maybe focus a little bit more on maybe doing some videos instead. I have been interested in doing a, state of Division 2, what could Division 3 be if it ever comes, what could Year 3 be? I've been kind of kicking around ideas for those videos. So, if you have any thoughts or opinions on that, especially if you're on YouTube, drop them down below. I would be curious to hear from you. And with that, we're going to wrap things up. So I am Bon Diesel on Twitch, where I stream a few times a week. You can check out my Twitter at Bon Diesel, or if you only want Division stuff, check out at the EchoCast. We do have some merch on streamlabs.com/Bon Diesel for the EchoCast and my own stuff. And that's all I have. So until next time.